Okay, we are on air and here for our interview today. We are with Tracy Jennings, who is the broker owner of Remax Realty in Ames and Story City, Iowa. They have been located in Ames for a number of years now and just recently opened up the firm in Story City. So, Tracy, we're going to just be going over some content that we've covered in class. And just to start, could you give us a general description of like what you do on a daily basis and what your job is within the firm?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. My husband Bill Jennings and I bought the franchise about 9.5 years ago. We are the third owners of the Remax Real Estate Center office in Ames, Iowa. Our Remax office was actually the first office in the state of Iowa, and so we're the third owners. So we didn't start new. We actually bought into systems and programs, and we had staff available. We didn't have to start from scratch, and it was a huge benefit for us. So we continued to grow the brokerage over the last 9 years. And so as a role, my role as broker owner, I have a joint role with my husband. We do kind of divvy up tasks within the office. He does more of the agent recruiting and managing the agents, handling any sort of issues that they might have with their clients. I handle more of the staff issues, so I do more of the staffing. I do the payroll, management of the staff. So we kind of have two different. Our agents in our office are considered self-employed by the U.S. government. We have independent contracts with each one of them, and then our staff are W-2 employees. So my role as a broker owner is to kind of make sure that the daily staff management and the processes that we use as an office run smoothly. So.
Okay, and I know you said that you took over. So approximately how many agents did you have like working at the firm at the beginning versus how many you have now?
Okay, that's a great question. When we took ownership, there were 12 agents working in our office. And, to be completely honest with you, my husband and I guess we were 36 when we bought the franchise. We were the youngest people in the office. So it was an older group of people. We had a good history, but we were definitely known as one of the smaller brokerages in the Ames area. Have never really been the powerhouse brokerage that we wanted to be. So we currently, fast forward 9 years, we're pushing 30 agents. We have 29 agents in the office, and they're doing really well. Now we have agents ranging from 21 to 62, I believe. So we have a larger range of agents in the office. But currently, our youngest agent she just turned 19. She works part-time, and then we have an agent that's 21 that works part-time as a transaction coordinator and also as a buyer's agent. So kind of a large range of age group. But to answer your question, just under 30 right now.
Okay. And is that like a age diversity kind of a problem to deal with at times, or not really?
The number of agents?
No, like the age diversity. So is it like maybe harder to deal with the younger agents versus rather the more experienced veteran agents?
I can say harder in different challenges. You have to have different models for, let's say somebody who's 19 or 21 years old. The training process for them is much different than somebody who, has been in the business 20 years that makes a move from another brokerage that's fully trained, and they just made a move maybe for the environment, or perhaps there's a better, they can make more money at our office. So we've used kind of two different systems and modules for training. Definitely more intensive for a younger agent, for us as broker owners, to get them started than somebody who makes a move from another brokerage that's fully trained.
Okay. So now we're going to jump into kind of some managerial stuff here. So what do you find helps you to be an effective manager and meet not only performance goals, but also satisfactory goals within your firm?
Okay. Can you repeat that question again?
What do you find helps you to be an effective manager, and what helps you meet both your performance and satisfaction goals?
Okay. So this is a good question, and it's doesn't have a really fast answer. So I wrote down some things. Thank you for sending me the questions that you were going to talk to me about today beforehand.
No problem.
So I wrote some things down, and thought I would share some of those with you. Let's see here. Very first thing is we have to, to meet our goals and to manage properly, you have to delegate your work wisely. And part of that, is set achievable goals for each one of the staff members. Communication, cannot say enough about properly communicating with your staff members. So when you delegate work wisely, you obviously have to have the right people in place to do the work. If you've got somebody who sits at the front desk and they're introverted and they don't really like people very much, that's the key thing, is just having the right people in the right positions with the right skill sets. Set achievable goals, communicate, always keep lines of communication open, and making sure that they understand what it is you're looking for. Another one of the key things that I think is really important in managing and being able to hit company goals is to spend time with your staff members. Sometimes, we get super, super busy, and it's easy to just go about my daily task without acknowledging maybe Barb, who sits at the front desk, or Jill, who works as a closer in our office. I have to make sure, or my husband has to make sure, that we are on a daily basis going and saying, how are you? How's life? How are things going? Are you having problems with the office? So making time for the staff. Another thing that's really important is recognizing, acknowledging them when they do, recognizing their achievements. If somebody worked really hard or did some problem solving on their own that maybe we would have expected that they would have needed to come to us, but instead they just found an answer themselves, to recognize them. And people don't need always, monetary and recognition is always awesome, but to be completely honest, the most effective type of management, in my opinion, is just patting them on the back and saying, hey, great job, or calling them out ahead of others and saying, hey, just wanted to give Shannon a round of applause for, being an awesome employee. Those sort of things are really big deals to people. And I think it's the key to creating an environment with staff that they enjoy coming to. Couple of other things that I guess would be important is having short-term or long-term goals. I know that that's that, like I said, it goes back to them understanding what are they here for in a bigger picture. I call it the why of the office. Like, why are we here and what are we doing this for? And I think if a staff member really can buy into what your goals are and what your why is, and you understand what their why is, and we can all work together, it's just a good formula for success.
Okay, so I know you like to talk about recognizing your employees, all that stuff, and I know that kind of leads into one of our other questions on what roles would you say that you deal with the most on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So I definitely like you're giving off that interpersonal role, really interacting with the other people in your office.
Yeah, it sounds like in class you guys have talked about interpersonal roles, you've talked about informational roles, decisional roles, all of which truthfully play a major part in managing the company. In our particular instance, and maybe ours is, real estate it's a relationship business. In comparison to, let's say I managed and owned a factory. In a factory, it may be more important to be more on the decisional roles or the informational roles. In real estate, it's a relationship-based business. And so the interpersonal relationships that we have as a manager, definitely number one. Number one in our office, honestly, to have those really good interpersonal skills with the agents, the relationships that the staff. Now, that doesn't, I don't want the informational role, the decisional role those definitely play a major part in our business. But probably not as strong or often as we have the interpersonal skills. So.
And even talking about skills, that kind of leads into our next question too, of just in your line of work, which of the following skills would you say is most important to you? And you're really hyping on the human skills, just having the ability to really work with others and just developing really high levels of emotional intelligence. So that pretty much also helped answer that question. So we're going to move into some more planning stuff now. So you're looking at types of policies and procedures. What different policies and procedures do you have at your firm?
We do have a pretty lengthy, I think it's maybe 10 pages, policies and procedures manual that we give to our staff. We have independent contractor agreements for the relationships that we have with our agents. So like I said to you earlier, we have two different kinds of employees here, some independent contractors and some are staff members. So I'm going to mainly talk about our staff. So we have a policies and procedures manual that, I wish I had it with me here right now, but policies and procedures manual starts with, what is our vision? What are our goals? What is the mission? Why are they here? And then it goes into the finest of details of our dress code and, being timely and time off, what holidays are they going to get off? And if they want to take off, how do they ask us to take time off? And what would we do in the event of maternity leave or all those sort of policies? It breaks it down even to if they get called to be a juror on jury duty, we have a whole paragraph in there that talks about what is our policy and how do we pay them when they get on jury duty. A couple of other policies and procedures that we talk about, moral conduct, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable in our eyes. How do we keep the key thing for policies and procedures is to make sure that all staff are treated fairly and that we give to them, they're going to give back. There's the one thing that I struggled with honestly the most, Tyler, for policies and procedures, and I actually thought about this a long time. I had an old policies and procedures manual that it had a phone policy in it. And originally the policies and procedures manual that I inherited when I bought the brokerage, the phone policy, there were no cell phones. Okay, the company started in 1985. And so when I bought the company 10 years ago, the policies and procedures manual, the policy for phones was annotated. I mean, it said, hey, if you need to make a personal phone call, you're allowed to use the phone, which is sitting on our desk. We ask that you keep those limited in time. So nowadays, fast forward, 10 years, and cell phones came out 20 years ago. We have cell phones, and everybody in my office, half the people in our office don't even have phones, like desktop phones sitting on their desk. My staff, they all have phones on their desk, but the reality is agents and, if I'm contacting one of my staff members, I might send them a text message and it's on their personal phone. So I had to really think through like the policy on what are we going to do with phones? And that was tricky because how do you, if I'm going to send my staff member a text message saying, hey, I need you to look up such and such, how do you keep track of that staff member who, are they sitting there communicating with an agent, or are they sitting there communicating with their best friend about what they're going to, where they're going to go out to eat that night? So as a manager, you have to think, okay, I can say no cell phones. The cell phones have to be in their purse all day long, or, in their back pocket or whatever. Or I can say, you know what, I'm going to trust that, cell phones are a part of, business nowadays. So that was a policy that we really had to ponder on and think, well, what is best for our office? So I don't know if that answers your question. Probably a longer, but policies and procedures on every little thing that you can think of are always important.
Okay. And you definitely went into some communication aspects, which is on some other questions that aren't necessarily on the sheet that I gave you. But since we're on the topic, we might as well stay on it. So obviously you talked about different types of tech that you used with your company with like cell phones. I'm sure you have information systems. But when looking at communication personally, would you rather have a face-to-face conversation or like a technological conversation?
That's I mean, face to face is always great. Face to face isn't always practical. So I think as a manager, you have to understand, there's a time and a place for a face to face conversation. There's a time and a place for text conversation and email conversation. Technical thing that we recently put in place about 4 months ago is a program called Slack, Slack. Have you ever heard of it?
I believe I'm familiar with the name. I'm not necessarily familiar with what it does.
So Slack is, I got some pushback from a lot of people then when we first started it, but they're really starting to like it. It's kind of like a text messaging, but you can create certain channels, and I have a channel called Staff Only, and it's a group. It's basically group text messaging, but you don't have to reset up. You don't have to add the group every single time you're going to send a text message. Or, sometimes you get tons of text messages and you just want to delete them off your phone. And then 2 months later, you're like, crap, I deleted something I wasn't supposed to delete. So Slack keeps everything in place into the right channel. So I have a staff only channel, and I have an agents only channel. I have a buyer needs channel. I have a rental channel. So depending on I have who does that channel. So let's say an agent wants to know, hey, I need a recommendation for somebody who is going to refinish hardwood floors. They would put it in the who does that channel. So it kind of keeps things organized. And it's been really helpful so far. I think people really like it. So that's something that's new that we have. So we have text messaging, and you have emailing, and you have face-to-face conversations, and now we have this program called Slack.
Okay. So, I would say the group messaging is definitely kind of a newer technological thing that's come along. I know iPhone kind of introduced it, and now other applications and companies are trying to get involved with it. So it's also, I have experience with that too. Like we have one for our baseball team that's effectively used to communicate with each other. So looking back kind of at goals, we talked about them a little bit earlier, but does your firm have short-term and long-term goals? And if they do, could you explain them a little bit or go in depth with what they are?
Yeah, sure. Let me get my cheat sheet because I have this written down. Okay. So short-term and long-term goals, always very important to have both. Short-term, as a short-term goals, I tell people you can break it down to the minute. Every day when I wake up, I maybe have a list of things that I've accomplished that day. So that would be those are my goals for the day. So you have your short-term goals, daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals. But I'm going to talk mainly about like yearly goals. Okay. So currently as an office brokerage, some of our short-term goals for 2018 would be to finish number one in the market. So Central Iowa MLS, number one as an office for volume and transactions. So I mentioned earlier, we bought the company 9 years ago. We were a smaller franchise in the area with 12 agents. And so our long-term goal back then was to one day be number one in the market. So that was 9 years ago. 2017 was the first year we took over number one in the market for volume. So we are not yet number one for transactions, but our office, if you combine all 29 agents, there is not another brokerage in Ames that did more than us for volume. There is another brokerage that did more transactions, but not volume. So our short-term goal for 2018 is to take number one for both volume and transactions, and maybe be a little bit like 2017 was this close, like super close, within like 1%. We want to kind of increase that gap and want to be there. Probably there are 3 brokerages in Ames right now that are, I think the general public would say they're pretty even. But we want to, our short-term goal is make 2018 a little closer to people saying, oh my gosh, RE/MAX is the place that you need to be. That's who you want to sell your house with, etc. Short-term goals for Bill and I personally as brokers, we would like to recruit at least 5 more real estate agents, not just like anybody, but successful real estate agents. And when I say successful, these are, we're hoping that within 3 years, they will become cappers, and that's a whole nother story. But what does capper mean? But basically it means that we feel like they're making a living selling real estate. So we'd like to recruit 5 agents that within the first 3 years would get to that level. Another short-term goal that we have is to, when I say capper, currently we had 16 of our we had 27 agents when we ended 2017. 16 of those capped, 16 agents capped. So our goal would is to have at least 20 of our agents capping in the office. And what that means for Bill and I is training them, advising them, encouraging them. That's a huge thing, encouraging them, because real estate you have to be thick-skinned to sell real estate. It's not always easy. And sometimes you don't get paid a penny until a deal closes, and you can work your tail end off. And if your buyer, something changes in their life that you don't have control of, they lost their job. Let's say they lose their job the day before they're supposed to close on their house. Not only did they lose their job, you just lost your paycheck. And that can be frustrating, or your best friends can end up working with somebody else. So encouraging our agents, and giving them the tools and resources to grow their business. So, Bill and I, we sell real estate for a living. So we have to focus on that side of things as well. But for today's purpose, for our interview, it's more about us being owners of the brokerage. That's a huge short-term goal for us, is to get, 16 cappers to at least 20, preferably even more. We want as many agents in our office capping. And what I mean by, capping is we feel like they're making a very healthy living for themselves. So those are some of our short-term goals. Did you ask me about long-term goals? I can't remember.
Yes, I did.
Okay. All right. I'll talk to you a little bit about long-term goals. Long-term goals are a little bit kind of more vague, honestly. It goes long-term again, kind of goes to becoming that powerhouse. One of our goals, you've seen our building, I believe. Currently, we have a large building, and we have 3 other tenants, a mortgage lender, we have an insurance agent, and an engineering firm, all that rent from us in our building. Long-term goal would be to fill this entire building up with successful real estate agents. So, which would probably mean in order to do that, we would have to double the size of the number of agents in the office. So you have to grow your company slowly, because you can't take on too many people, or otherwise, half of them won't do well. And then, but to foster an environment where, our goal sometimes, our goal has been this way from the very time we bought the company, has been to foster an environment that people love to come to work to every day, where it doesn't feel like work. When they come to work, they enjoy the people that they're with, and that's been a key thing. A key thing to growing is creating an environment that people love to come to work to every day. So, to fill our entire building up with top producing agents, and then ultimately, I think for many business owners, why do you do this? You're hoping to grow a business that one day we can sell to whoever we want to sell it to. But sell the business for profit, so we can retire off of the money that we sell the business with. So those are some long-term goals.
So, and also just kind of going back to talking about like wanting to double the amount of agents and not wanting to fill up immediately, looking more at the quality versus quantity aspect of your agents.
Absolutely.
Very good. Okay, so going off of your agents, how do you go about motivating them? So say you have an agent who's maybe not selling as much as you think they can, or maybe not putting forth the effort that you necessarily want out of them, or so just generally expecting more. What do you do to motivate not only them, but the other agents to stay committed and really put forth their best effort?
Yep. So real estate is one of those things because, as a real estate agent, when they're real estate agents, we don't have requirements. We don't have any like, you have to do this amount of money because, sometimes people will get into the business and they don't have huge desires to work 60 hours a week and make $250,000 a year. They don't, that's not their goal. Sometimes people get into real estate to, supplement their husband's income or supplement their wife's income, and maybe they're okay, maybe they stay at home, or maybe they have another job that we have an agent that works at the school in the morning, and she is an assistant to a little boy that she's fallen in love with, and she sells real estate in the afternoon. She doesn't have huge aspirations to do amazing things in real estate. Now we have other real estate agents that sky's the limit, like they want to make buku bucks and they want to invest in properties. And so to answer your question as far as motivating them, the first thing as a manager we have to understand is what is their goal. Because if somebody doesn't really want to, they don't want to work at it that hard, and we're not requiring that of them. If I'm trying to push them to make buku bucks, they're going to be completely overwhelmed. So first of all, we have to understand what it is, what are their goals, their personal goals. And then helping, motivating them to aspire or to get to those goals. So, we meet with them, we understand, we talk to them on a daily basis. Honestly, Bill, probably my husband, that's what he does every day. He goes around and he talks to all the agents. What's going on? What are you doing? What are you struggling with? What are you, and so, sometimes it's just walking them through things. Sometimes if they're down, picking them back up and letting them know, hey, you just got to keep going after it. Or giving them ideas. Sometimes you can motivate somebody by giving them an idea that they didn't have themselves, or giving them a book to read, telling them about, sometimes Misery Loves Company. Have you ever heard that?
I don't believe I'm familiar with it.
Okay. Misery Loves Company is sometimes, if you're really down and out and you go to talk to your boss about how you're down and out, and your boss is talking about how great everything is going, it just makes you feel crappier, right? So, if you've got an agent that's down and out, talk to them about that, relate to them, have empathy for them, and then don't just walk away, but then say, hey, but have you thought about this? Or here's some things, and try to give them hope. And make, sometimes for Bill and I, that might mean, what, that so-and-so's having they don't have a lot of business going on right now. I have a buyer that I'm going out of town, and I'm going to hand this buyer off to that agent. And suddenly, just like that, they get a sale under their belt, and livens them up again. But it's about, and sometimes we do a training session once a week called Developing Superstars. And there's a lot of, we talk a lot about goals, and we give some awards every month. We give an Agent of the Month award. We also give an award it's called RE/MAX Cares, and that's an award that goes to somebody who maybe volunteered or is making a difference in their community. So it has nothing to do with real estate, but it's a way of recognizing their accomplishments.
So definitely balancing like their work and personal lives.
Exactly. Yep. And I think a good manager, and this is something I think makes Bill and I different than a lot of other managers. A lot of times people think, you got to keep business and personal separate. For us, and in this industry, we want to know what's going on in both, because if they're having a hard time in their personal life, it's definitely going to affect how they're doing selling real estate. If somebody has a father that, and this happened, a couple of years ago, that we had a gal that her father was really, really sick, and she was spending a lot of time with her father. So we had to we had to go to her and encourage her to, hey, let's reevaluate your goals for this year, so that you don't get discouraged when you don't hit your goals. That's okay. You know, it's okay not to hit your goals. Let's change your goals so that at the end of the year you can be proud of what you did do, because you got some life issues that are going on that you just need to reevaluate and change the way you look at things so you don't get discouraged.
Absolutely. So you kind of got us on the topic of work versus personal life. So just going off of what we have here, how do you, I know you're very busy. You have 3 kids, obviously, who are all very involved in sports, other activities. How do you keep your work life and your personal life separate and also balanced?
Ooh, that is a daily struggle. Honestly, you know what? I don't know that I'm perfect at it. That's for sure. That's the one thing that, you know, sometimes I've worked with real estate coaches before, and they've said, what do you struggle with? You know, what are your struggles? And I've told them balance, work-life balance. But you know, I think you have to have set some boundaries on with things. My kids, I've been in real estate 9 years. They come with me sometimes, and they honestly have, my job is very much a part of their life. And I think they, for the most part, have enjoyed it. I think all 3 of my kids have a strong interest in the real estate world, because I think they probably feel like they've been selling real estate since day one. But real estate it gives you the flexibility to be able to do the things with your kids that you want to do. You know, other people, when they have an 8 to 5 job, if they're in junior high, they play games at 3:30 in the afternoon. So, you know, and they have multiple games a year. I don't have to go ask a boss, hey, can I take off to go watch my son or my daughter play basketball? So that's been nice. You know, I have the flexibility to do that. I always tell people, if you want to be able to effectively balance life, work, you know, friendships, family, kids, one thing that's super important is you got to get your butt up early in the morning. And I think there are way too many people that they sleep is too big of a part of their life, and sleep is super important. But I think that sometimes people just get they sleep too much. And I think exercising is important, you know, so that you feel good about yourself. I think the way that you feel about yourself will reflect, you know what, I found that 10 quality minutes of time with my children, and I'm saying 10 minutes, that's not very much, or 10 quality minutes with my husband can be worth far more than, you know, spending an hour or 2 hours of not quality time with them. So trying to, you know, if you are spending time with whatever you're doing, let's just say I'm doing something for real estate or I'm doing something with my kids, to be engaged with them is key. And I'm not always perfect at that, trust me. I mean, sometimes I'm with my kids and I'm on my phone and I shouldn't be on my phone, or I'm with my client and I'm still thinking about my kids. So it's a daily struggle to have that balance. But again, I think it's just important to communicate with them. You know, my kids have had to, you know, I've communicated, have to communicate with them sometimes to say, hey, I'm sorry that, you know, I'm not going to be there on Saturday morning or Friday night. I don't miss their activities, but sometimes they want me at home. They want me cooking more meals or something. But, you know, I say, hey, I'm going to sell this house and then we can catch a movie later or something. So talking to them, communicating with them about, you know, hey, you need to understand that mom does need to go to work to put food on our table. And sometimes with clients, I've had to tell clients, my son has a baseball game, and I have a policy that I don't miss their activities. And if the client wants to fire me, they don't want me to be their real estate agent because I'm going to go watch my son play baseball, I have to have the attitude and be strong enough to say, you know what, that's not the right client for me. So, and they can find somebody else to work with.
Okay. So what would you say is like now we're going to look into more organizational stuff. As a manager, how important is organization to you, not only with like your staff, but also with your agents? So I know you talked about the developing superstars, that class. Obviously, there's going to be some organization involved with that, putting it all together and bringing that forward. But also looking forward at the organization of, you said you do payroll as well. What different aspects you have to bring in to make sure that you're consistently organized and making sure that you're effectively managing through organizational purposes?
Yeah, that's a good question. So having the right systems, I'm sure you guys talk about systems in your classes all the time. Having the right systems are, I mean, key to success. If you have the right systems in place, everything falls into place. If your staff knows the systems that you have, and what their expectations are, everything falls into place. So to be organized, I'll use a program called dotloop, for example. Dotloop is a online system that we have that we track all of our real estate transactions. So if we have a sale, everything is a cloud-based program that all documents for that particular sale go into this cloud. So to be organized, we have a trainer, somebody who, when a new agent starts, they train this person on, this is the way our office uses this program. This is how we name our files. This is how we, what needs to be in the loop. So that's, dotloop is the program we use. It definitely keeps us organized. We also have another program called Lone Wolf. It is the back end accounting system for the office. So dotloop keeps all of our transactions, our paperwork, and then Lone Wolf is our accounting side of things. And in each one of those programs, there are task lists, and that's a matter of, at one time we review it annually. But honestly, when we set it up, we sat down and we said, well, what are the tasks that need to be in there? And it'll send alerts out to the staff members. So when you talk about organizing is, you have to be organized every day, but if you set up your systems properly from day one, it just keeps everything else intact. And then obviously you have to review and see, are there new programs out there that are better than what we have? And is it the right time to switch? Because occasionally you do switch. So to have the right systems in place are key. And if you get that done correctly the first time, it should make everything else a lot easier.
Okay. So now looking more into some leadership things. Usually every leader is at one point or another a follower. And they usually are under someone else who is a leader, and they learn different leadership traits from that person. Would you say that there is definitely a role model for you that like you kind of idolize as a leader in your life?
If you ask me, okay, is there one person that I aspire, not necessarily one person. I'm surrounded by a lot of mentors that, we call them mastermind groups. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Masterminds. So Facebook has been huge. Actually, I'm on a lot of mastermind Facebook groups. And so I'm constantly learning from other people. There are definitely some real estate coaches out there and a lot of amazing books that can teach you how to be a better leader. I get a lot of tips from just various different people on how to be a better leader. And I think for me, sometimes the hardest thing about being a leader for me would probably be making time for everybody. That's tricky, because I know being a great leader has to do with, just spending time with them, etc. And that's probably where I struggle the most, is just, like you said, I have 3 children, I have 5 staff members, I have 29 agents, I have you know, 3 brothers, and I have a sister and nieces and nephews and friends and family. And how the heck do you make time for all those people? And I don't know, you know, but leadership, as far as who do I look up to the most, there are a lot of people that I really look up to. Have you ever heard of Barbara Corcoran?
I'm not familiar with her.
She's on, well, what's the show that we always watch that, oh, people come in with the ideas. Shark Tank. She's one of the judges on Shark Tank. So
oh, then yeah, I know that.
So she started as a real estate, $1,000 in her pocket. She's very inspirational as a leader. She would be somebody that I think truly, from what I have seen, seems to be a great person and a great leader. She started with $1,000 in her pocket, really was broke, and she borrowed the $1,000 actually, and she wanted to get into real estate. And look at what, I mean, she's amazing, you know, things that she's done with her career. But I find her very inspirational. I've read several of her books and truly just find her, I think she's a really neat person. She's been a good mentor, I think, as far as anybody famous. But there are lots of people, just average people, just like you, just like me, that I take great things from. And I'm never one of those people that says, you know, I'm where I want to be. I'm always learning. Tomorrow, actually, I leave to go to Vegas for the RE/MAX annual conference. And my goal when I get out there is to bring some things back, not that'll help me grow as an agent or as a broker owner. But I'm always trying to learn new things to be a better leader.
Okay, and so just kind of going back to some of the course content that we cover, our book kind of describes 3 different types of leaders. So there's a charismatic leader who inspires others, creates enthusiasm, and leads to extraordinary performance. The transactional leader who directs the efforts of others through tasks, rewards, and structures. And the transformational leader who is inspirational and arouses extraordinary effort and performance. Of those 3, which do you believe what category do you believe you'd fall into?
Ooh, let me read through this. So charismatically inspires others, creates enthusiasm, and leads to okay, so if looking at those 3, truthfully, my personality is probably more the transactional leader. I'm charismatic, yes, and I do. Second would be charismatic. I do try to inspire people and get people going, etc. The transformational, like when I do let's say I'm teaching a class or something, there's some, you've probably been in classes before where you listen to somebody talk and they're just so inspirational. I'm probably not that person to stand in front of a group and be super, you know, I'm one-on-one, I'm really good. But I'm probably definitely a transactional leader. Like I'm good with systems, I'm good with organization, I'm good with, you know, I'll pat them on their back, etc. But I'm not the rah coach that sits in front of the classroom or sits in front, you know, of a crowd. And I'm sure you've seen them before, where you leave and you're just totally pumped up because that person was so inspirational and such a great leader. My husband's probably better at that than I am. But when I go out to the RE/MAX conference, there will be sessions where I leave that I'm just like, wow, that was awesome. And then I'll be another class where I'll go and I'm like, they gave me really great information. So I'm that leader that probably is going to host the class that is really good information.
Okay, so this is, we didn't have this on any of the prelim questions because I'm one of the only ones that knows about it. But obviously, decision-making as a manager can be very tough. And I don't know if you're comfortable talking about it, but I did an internship with you for a week over our J-term period. And I know at that point in time, you were having troubles with one of your staff members with a minor embezzling issue. Would you be willing to share a little bit about that?
Did I what?
Would you be willing to share kind of about that experience and just kind of walk through like the decision-making process and like what steps you had to go through throughout the process?
Yep. Okay, well, that specific incident, So, on a day-to-day basis, as an owner of a company, I'm not necessarily looking at my books every single day, like nitpicking things, but I certainly don't have time for that. Like I trust, and I tell my staff, I will trust you. And I did the same thing with my kids. I will trust you until you give me a reason not to trust you. Okay, period. That's it. I will trust you until you give me a reason to trust you. And I don't tell staff members this, but I pay a lot more attention than they think I do. It's only a matter of time before I'm going to catch you. So in that particular instance, it was actually, I want to say December 30th, a couple of years ago, actually. And I was kind of running through some numbers in our accounting system, and there were some checks I thought were kind of strange. Of course, it was December 30th. It was 8 o'clock at night. I thought immediately, I'm sitting at home and I was like, this is kind of strange. So December 31st, I came in that day and dove into it a little deeper and found that I had an employee that was cutting herself some additional paychecks, because at that time I didn't do payroll, she did. And I mentioned it to my husband. And so in an instance like that, Tyler, it takes like 5 seconds to figure out what you need to do. We sent our staff home at noon that day. Of course, it was New Year's Eve. So we, hey, go home. And we called the other staff member back into the office and we terminated her employment immediately. I mean, when someone's taking money from you, it's not if and or but, it's just, you're done, you're out of here. And I don't know that any owner of a company would, it's not I'm going to give you a second chance. You're just done. So in that particular instance, that's what happened with them. And from there, then I had to clean up some bookkeeping messes, and we did change some things. I mean, I've been doing payroll ever since. On that particular account, nobody signs the checks except for me. And that was, I had to change my procedures on that particular. And I think I have some staff members currently that are like, hey, why don't you relinquish that to somebody else, and don't let one staff member spoil it for you forever. But for me, I'm like, nope, that's one thing that I want to be able to control.
So you definitely say that was a good damage control approach, is to just do it yourself.
Yep. And someday maybe there'll be that trusted employee that I can trust to do those things. Maybe I might outsource payroll someday to an accounting firm. But even, when you hire an accounting firm, you still kind of have to be cautious on those things.
Okay. And then just kind of moving into our final questions here. What's the most rewarding thing about being a manager for you?
Ooh, the most rewarding thing. The most rewarding thing probably is when occasionally, and it's not very often, because honestly, sometimes as a manager, you're always giving accolades to everybody else. And as a man, I try not to, toot our horn too much. Because a good leader is not going to draw attention to themselves. They're going to point out everybody else's great qualities. So the most rewarding things for me, honestly, Tyler, are when somebody, I had one yesterday. I had an agent who sent me an email and just said, to thank us for creating an environment that they love and that they've been profitable. And, when agents or staff members say those sort of things, that's super rewarding. For our office to be number one in volume this last year, huge. I mean, holy cow, I can't tell you how excited we are to have taken a brokerage that when we bought it was just a small brokerage in town to certainly now we're a powerhouse brokerage. And to be able to share that with people is super cool.
Absolutely. And then, so kind of moving into our final question here, is there any advice that you have to our class going forward as potentially being future managers?
Yeah, I think, if you truly want to be an effective manager, you need to, there are a couple things that I think are really key to effective management. You have to be always willing to learn, always willing to take advice, like soak it all up. Even the greatest leaders out there have coaches, have people mentoring them, have people saying, hey, you need to work on this. And just because somebody tells you you need to work on this, don't take offense to it, which is sometimes hard to do. So, always continue to learn. Number two, I would say that you have to be confident. To be a good manager, you have to be confident in your own abilities, and not overconfident, not cocky, but confident, so that you're not questioning yourself all the time. I see a lot of times people in business, sometimes people who don't get to where they want to be in business. Part of the reason is because they're constantly questioning what they did. Like, well, I don't know if I should do this or if I should do that or do this or do this. I think, you know what? Look at the problem, figure out the best answer, and then be confident in what you're doing. And then so those are some key things I think that's important in management. And if you guys are, I assume most of the people in your class are, in their, somewhere between 18 and 22 years old, somewhere in that range. I'm sure there are probably some people out there that, went back to school and maybe they're a little bit older, but you're at this start of your life, right? And when you're 18 to 22 years old, you think you probably know everything, right? And I think it's really important at this stage of you guys' lives to look to older people. You don't have to recreate the wheel all the time. Find successful people and copy them. Huge thing in management. I can't say that there's really probably anything that I've done in my entire career that is completely novel. I'm just watching other people and I'm being, I guess, smart with my decisions. Watch other people and watch, if other people are successful, well, then copy them, So, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not plagiarizing to, find a successful manager and go interview them and find out, well, how did you start your real estate brokerage, or how did you start your retail business? The people who fail the most are the people who get into business thinking they know it all. And they think, well, I'm going to do it my way. Those are the people that fail. It's the people that really succeed are the people that are willing to look at what other people are doing and learning from them.
All right. Well, that will conclude all of our questions for the interview. At this time, I would just like to personally thank you, and also my other group members, Aaron and Braxton, would like to thank you as well. They couldn't make it today, so that's why I was conducting the interview. But really just appreciate taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit down and talk with us.
You're very welcome.
All right. Have a good rest of your day, Tracy.
Take care. Bye, Tyler.
Bye.